Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse Season 5, Episode 4. It's called Gaugamela, so full spoilers for the episode, as always. And I did look that up, because I wanted... really I just wanted to know how to pronounce it. But it's something to do with the last battle of Alexander the Great or something like that. So I think thematically, there's some clear intentions as to what's going on with Marco and what they're comparing it to. I can't say I knew any of that off the top of my head. I am not a history buff by any means. But yeah, big stuff in this episode. So much stuff, in fact, that I am actually worried about making sure we remember all of it. Because this episode, while obviously we had the big cliffhanger in episode 3, that kind of felt at the end of a sect of episodes. This, even more so, I felt like was really the culmination of what we've had so far this season. And it even kind of felt that way just in its structure, because it didn't necessarily feel compelled to give every plot line a plot. I was actually shocked we even cut to Naomi about 15 minutes towards the end of the episode, because we went so long without her that
it was just kind of, oh hey, yeah, this is still going on.
Yeah, but we never returned to Amos after like maybe a third halfway in the episode. You know, he was quite heavily, he had a plot line going for the first half and then he disappears, and it makes sense given what happens at the end of that section, because it's like, you know, is he okay, so on.
Shit happens and we transition elsewhere.
Yeah, so it has a very interesting structure, but what it does in the context of this show and the context of what's going on right now is that it makes everything happening feel global. And I love that we start the episode with Alex and Bobby, who are in the ship, and they're spying on the convoy and all that, and everything they're doing is completely sidetracked because they happen to see on the news, like, because I think Alex notices first that there's some sort of weird trade instructions or route instructions for the ships going to Earth, and that makes Bobby check the news and like, wait, shit, an asteroid hit Earth, oh dear.
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise to us, obviously, but then everything sort of steamrolls out of that. And obviously, immediately, Vassarala is in on it and talking about it. But other characters don't even find out until way later in the episode, because Holden and Co are so busy doing stuff on Tycho that it's quite late in the episode before they even... And Naomi, because she's been kidnapped and locked in a cell, doesn't find out until almost the very end of the episode.
This is borderline one of the most unbelievable elements of this entire show.
Which one? Which part?
People are like Holden, and I was busy, but not knowing quicker. In the sense of the way current modern society is, we know everything immediately because your phone will ping you and go, "Hey, quick, important breaking news." The idea that they don't have something like that is kind of weird.
I'm going to defend it because it's not so much that the show has an established version of Twitter or anything like that, and I'm not going to say, oh, he wasn't shouting Twitter because he was busy. What I'm going to say though is that what they were specifically doing at the time when this was all happening is they were in the middle of essentially like a sting almost. They were like engaged in a situation where there were security. They were watching, like they were very focused in a very.
Look, all I'm saying
moment.
is, I'm surprised there wasn't a little, like, CNN pop-up at the top of the screen.
They're too focused. It's not like it goes that long, really, in real time. I mean, besides, how often... Given that we find out there was an explosion at the Parliament on Mars at almost the exact same time as the first asteroid, It makes me wonder, because ultimately Marco is the one going after the proto-molecule, as is made very clear in this episode. It is, you know, the coup that happens on Tycho, like... How much later is that in terms of actually syncing up with that first asteroid? It feels a bit later because of the order we see things in, but I'm wondering, like, is it half an hour later? Is it?
I mean, yeah, you could be right on that one.
You know, because it feels very intentionally synced up.
I'll be honest, this isn't really a real complaint. I'm just kind of nitpicking.
Yeah, why do you want to nitpick? Such a great episode of TV.
I don't know. I feel like because we're going to praise so much stuff, I have to get something negative in there.
So I think almost spreading out, like our main cast finding out what happened throughout the episode, almost evenly in a weird way, because I think Amos is second because he kind of sees it on the news when he's sitting waiting in the waiting room of the prison and whatnot, and then later of course Holden, and then very towards the end is Naomi. It kind of, because they're kind of our four characters, having them evenly spread throughout the episode keeps giving us like a new person to sort of feel the impact of, oh shit, what's going on, and then how that kind of interacts with their plot. So I thought that was a really neat structural thing. They made it feel like it did, because we were saying last episode how this is going to affect everything, the tone of everything's going to change, and it did once they found out, but they didn't all find out at the same time. So but having it do this, it almost feels like a shockwave going through our characters, just in the way the story's told, which I think's kind of neat.
It is very clever.
So where to begin in terms of like plot lines? Let's go with Amos. I don't know why we never really considered that he was going to see someone that we actually knew. I think we were so caught up in him going to his past and meeting people.
I think that's what it is. I think it's because everything about this plot up till this point had been so mysterious and fresh and new that it was just assuming that it was more new stuff.
Yeah, the only time I only considered it was someone we might know when the introduction to get down to the cell was so long and like sort of teased that I thought, oh, this feels like we might actually get a reveal here of like who this is. And it would have worked if it wasn't, because it would be like, okay, you're telling us this new person's important because of how much time you're building up to it. But it popped in my head, we might know who this is, because this feels like they're building up to a, dun dun
a
dun.
reveal. Yeah.
And it is Clarissa Mao, of course, from season 3. And this idea that Amos is going to see her because he recognizes some of himself in her and doesn't want her to, it's not all on her. She's messed up by the world around her. And he knows that maybe more than most. So he's there to help. But yeah, we get a sort of like the idea of this ultra maximum security prison where there's more guards than prisoners, because the prisoners at this particular prison is kind of the Belle Reve of the Expanse universe, in that it's all the enhanced humans that have got, and in the case of this universe, all mods and tech. They're all in their bodies.
These are the people who went all cyberpunk.
Yeah, these are the people who went cyberpunk. And she's not having a happy. I mean, no one's having a happy time in prison, but she's especially doped up all the time so that she can't use her mods and she can't do anything with her. I was going to say powers. That's not the right word, but
I know what you meant.
So it's kind of a sad existence, and I think the scene here is really good. I think because we've just been tapping into Amos's past and kind of learning more about the context of why he is who he is. And then him going to try and help someone he recognizes some of himself in, I think actually gave this even more weight than it would have done if he just went here first.
And I think the fact that we saw a good amount of her journey lets us, and knowing now that Amos feels this, kindred spiritness, it kind of lets us transpose a lot of what Amos must have gone through without even having to show or tell us a lot of it.
And we saw her at her worst. Obviously, she had the... she made this better choice at the end of her plot in season 3, but we saw her at her worst where she was at her most extreme. And Amos says that he was lucky that he had someone to help him through it, and then arguably he met more people who were going to help him through, and he's been kind of fortunate, at least in that sense. And the idea that he recognizes that is also quite interesting. Yeah, he obviously had a very shitty start in life because of where he was born and what he was born into and the life that he started with, but he does acknowledge the positives that are around him and what he is lucky to have, which I think is also an interesting nuanced part of his character.
You're telling me Amos is a very interesting character?
I feel like if you describe Amos though, like just part of who he is to other people, they could. I almost imagine people just assuming he's like a blank badass character who doesn't have anything else. He's just a tough guy who can like fight well.
Yeah, it takes a lot to actually explain him.
Yeah. Which is good, and good TV characters in a lot of ways should kind of feel that complex. But the big thing here is that the second asteroid hits. We don't see it hit itself. We find out in the news after, but it's kind of clear that this is what's probably happened, because we hear the lockdown alarms going off. In the prison, and of course they've went deep into this hyper secure basement. So as soon as I started to think, oh, maybe something's happening, in the context of these asteroids, I went, oh, Amos may actually be in kind of a safe-ish place, safer than people up top.
As it goes, yeah.
And we don't know if it's directly where he was, if it was like the impact was nearby, or if
we kind of see just like a shake, right?
Yeah,
so it must have been close.
Yeah, we see some cracks in the ceiling, so it's clearly the shockwave and the impact is felt here, but how close? Because that's one of the things we see in the news is that there's warnings of tidal waves from where the first one hit and stuff. And
I think the second one was bigger from what we see later.
Yeah, because the second one was I think north of Philadelphia, or it was near Philadelphia anyway. It may not be
northwest of Philly.
Northwest. So the gang, they're screwed. Not that they're still alive, but still. That was an Always Sunny joke for anyone who didn't get what I was saying there. So, and that's the last we see of Amos in this episode. We don't really see any more of him.
It's a ballsy place to leave it.
It is, yeah.
It's the sort of thing where if that had been the moment at the end of an episode, you go, yeah, sure, that's how you leave an episode, right? That's the sort of moment you leave a character on.
I shit you not, there was at least 3 different scenes in this episode where I was so wrapped up in the plot, I had no concept of how long it had been going that I thought the episode was ending the way it cut to black at several points.
No, I get it. It does it a lot.
So that's just good. And obviously, like, Clarissa's leaving with him, right? Because obviously the prison's going to be in a shambles and torn apart, and she's going to be this, anti-hero with the do you know what this episode made me want? And I wasn't feeling it in the first 3. And when I say this now, I'm not complaining. This is not a complaint. This is just how good the writing is, and how good a villain they've made out of Marco. And everything that happens in this episode with the coup on Tycho, with the asteroids, everyone getting impacted by it, is about halfway through this episode, particularly during the coup on Tycho, I went, the team needs to get back together. We need them together. They need to fight this. They're all weak because they're all split up. We need the crew to be fighting this fight. Damn it! And it made me kind of root for the and it may take all season. They may not even get together again till the finale, for all I know, and that's okay.
Well, this is what we were saying in the first episode, where we said it'll be at least half the season.
Yeah. But now they're making me thirst for it, because now it's like there's characters, because the coup on Tycho is very.
What I'll say is that what I like about we want it. It's not just they're not interesting on their own.
No, it's not that at all.
We've talked about shows not that long ago where when you split up all the characters, it's just not that interesting. It's boring to watch because they don't have that back and forth dynamic.
On a completely unrelated note, Umbrella Academy just got renewed for season 3. Continue.
God damn it. Okay. Yes. But here it's not because of that I'm enjoying all of their plots. Like, individually, still all great. But it's, you want them together because you want the fist pump of it.
Yeah. I want the reunion because I want the family back together to fight. Because Marco has instantly become the best villain this show has had, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably he was already kind of approaching that, and the way they've kind of kept him off camera, because he was off camera a lot in season 4 before we met him. He was missing, barring that one ominous shot at the end of episode 1. He was missing for the first 3.5 episodes, and when we actually get to see him for the first time this season, it's when Naomi sees him. Again properly. I know we had the one menacing shot of him looking at his hologram, but
it's a smart choice.
Yeah, I think that was a wise choice, because it felt like a big moment when she got to see him, and because we've never seen them interact, even though we've had all this history hinted at between them, that felt like it had a lot of meaning, a lot of impact. I thought the moments were well played by both. Where he doesn't even, it's not because part of me was thinking, is he going to kill her? There's some interesting details here that this was not his order to bring her here. That was Philip on his own who made that choice.
Yeah, he plays it very nonchalant though, doesn't he?
He does. But he because I was thinking, is he going to want to just kill her for her betrayal and all that? But no, he's like, no, welcome back to your home, welcome back to family. It's almost like he wants to try and re-brainwash her. And
I'm assuming that's his intention. Yeah.
And maybe at some point she may have to even go along with it for a bit to, I don't know, gain some more power, gain some leverage, whatever.
Yeah, I can see again. I feel like I'm maybe projecting onto a lesser show, or if this show does it, it'll do it in a way that makes me care. But I can see the easy TV moment of when they come to fire on Marco's ship. They'll be like, "Oh, Naomi's on board. We can't do that," and just for the easy drama. But I'm sure if this show does go down that route, it'll do it in a very compelling way.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about that yet. Just because we're not even close to ship battles.
It crossed my mind as soon as they started, keeping her on board at the end of this.
Yeah, so that's obviously that ends with his big speech where he takes responsibility. The free navy, the free fleet, taking responsibility for this and saying that this is retribution for everything the belt has went through, in several lifetimes. Yeah,
he basically goes, Earth and Mars, we still respect your right to exist. We're not, colonizing you. You keep your planets, but your jurisdiction ends at your atmospheres. That's it. That's what you got.
Which is pretty bold. I mean, space is a pretty big place. He's claiming quite a lot.
He's claiming everything else, including the rings and everything on the other side of the rings.
Yeah, because you would think that some level of their outer atmosphere would still, in the same way that a country has like airspace, right? You'd think that radius around Earth would belong to.
Yeah, I mean, I assume in practicality when he said ends your atmosphere for that, but I mean, I'm assuming just satellite orbit is still fine.
We'll see. But no, it's a great big speech, and I think the actor's doing a good job. And it is a really ballsy thing to cast this actor for this huge role that you know is going to be a big deal. Last season when they cast him, for that, and to keep him hidden for so much of that season and what this season has been so far, and then because if we got to this moment and he didn't have the strong chemistry with Naomi and his son Philip, and if he didn't have this gravitas in the speech, the whole thing would feel a bit like, oh no, this isn't working.
That would have been a horrific moment. All of this build up for then, if this speech falls flat,
yeah,
it'd be like, oh, never mind.
And we see everyone, not everyone, but like we see a lot of different people. Vassarala's watching this speech on Luna. Holden's watching this speech, and he's surrounded by people on Tycho, and I was definitely wondering if we were going to hear a few people cheering on Tycho. The idea that some Belters were going to be all for this, and I presume some are. In fact, we know some are because there was a coup. The lady with the, I don't even know what you call that hairstyle, with the little...
I don't know. I don't know the words.
All the little... I don't even know. But the Belter who was kind of nice to everyone in the first episode, she shoots Fred in the back, which is one of the headlines of this episode. Fred is very much dead.
Definitely seems that way, yeah.
Well, I thought they might be able to save him because they were, because he was still kind of breathing, and they were it was like get him to gravity, and that was a big plot point in season 3. Like what being in that no gravity does for blood flow if you're injured, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get him to thing, but she just shoots him in the back. It's this really visceral thing where there's people on here that are there to betray him, and there's a bit of a fight, and we get this cool ass robot, this mech robot thing that comes out the wall. Cool. And steals the proto-molecule, which is just hidden in the... I loved that Fred was like, you don't know what it is. No one ever knows what it is. No one will ever find it. I love that it's just hidden in the wall on this station.
Of course it is.
I kind of like that. Because part of you think, it's on a secret asteroid. So he's got some sort of secret lab in an asteroid somewhere. He's got... some
That's what he wants everyone to think.
Yeah. But he's literally got it behind the painting with the dogs playing poker.
Some things never change.
On the station. I appreciate it. But no, I think Fred's been a character since at least season 2, maybe season 1.
I'm just going to say, definitely season 2.
A long time, and I felt when Holden looks down at his body when he's lying there dead, and obviously I think Bull is a character. This is the first time I've remembered his name, to be honest. But Bill, the guy, the security chief or whatever his rank is, on the station. It feels like him and Holden are going to be working together a lot more now, so he feels that he's going to be stepping up as terms of a role. But when Holden looks down and says he deserves to finish what he was building, like I kind of felt it. I was like, he was trying to do something. He had some shady tactics here or there to make sure he had some strength and leverage, but ultimately he was not doing what Marco was doing. He wanted some kind of he still wanted trade with the Inners. He still wanted to have some sort of functioning relationship.
He didn't want to restrict them to this extent. And if he definitely wanted the belt, but he didn't seem to want control over the rings and everything beyond the rings, at least not to the extent that Marco does.
No. I mean, he clearly wanted to be in control of the transit through it, the idea that, okay, this is their territory, so they're going to police it. They're going to be the ones...
He wanted to be a toll collector.
Yeah, he wanted to be the one profiting from it, which makes some amount of sense. The proto-molecule itself, we find out, is just leverage for Marco. If Earth and Mars tried to retaliate, they'll just release the proto-molecule on one of the planets.
It's basically the nuke threat.
And it's a pretty scary threat because we've seen what just a little bit of that can do once it starts to grow and spread. So it's a very effective thing. And I think I kind of like that beyond just... Because I think there was a danger if we went down another, we're going to use it and have a scientist poke around it and try to do something with it. Then it would start to feel like it was doing the same old stuff again.
I appreciate just the simplicity of this. But like, just point and shoot. That'll do the trick.
Yeah, and we understand the threat because we've seen the damage it can do. We spent seasons on that threat. And...
at the very least, the governments of both Mars and Earth understand this threat too. And
I think that's the beauty of this, is that you can have this shorthand. You almost create your own language when you're doing a TV show, you're writing a book series, where once you've built up a threat like the proto-molecule, you can just use it as a shorthand threat without ever having to... And the audience gets immediately the importance and the severity of what that threat is, because you've built it up so much. Whereas, if you just watch a movie, say, and in the first 5 minutes saying, we've got a nuke, it's like, yes, that is a very serious threat, but you're just kind of banking on real world understanding of what a nuclear bomb is. This, because we have seen what it's done to people up close, we've seen the devastation, we've seen it, it has more meaning to us as viewers of this than just saying, oh, we've got a nuke.
Right, and there's nothing inherently wrong with saying we've got a nuke. I mean, even just last episode, when they told us, the blast radius of that hypothetical asteroid, the first one, and they were like, oh, it's like, like this nuke, was kind of basically how they compared it for us, the audience. Just so, okay, we've got a scale. And that's fine, because we didn't have a reference point as an audience for this size asteroid hitting Earth. We didn't know. Whereas with Protomolecule, we know exactly what it's like, so we don't need to do that. So it's they know when to do it and when not to. So using the tools in the right places.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's that big. So obviously, there's not much more to say about Bobby and Alex except her. He's feeling very uneasy and very conflicted about what they're doing. He hates the idea that he served for 20 years for a planet that was, had this much corruption, and she's
just like, chill, just don't worry about it.
Well, she gives him this analogy. She talks about her pet rat, what she called Mouse, which is the most Bobby thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And talks about essentially losing the rat, because rats don't usually die of natural causes, and if they do, it's pretty nasty with tumors and stuff like that. But she cried, and it was this painful experience. But then she got over it, because ultimately there's only so much energy you have, and that includes grief. You can only expel so much of that before you kind of have to move on. And basically that's where she's went through what Alice is going through, this doubt, this feeling of like she's wasted her time, and the loyalty she had for Mars is kind of all been for nothing in a lot of ways. But doing something makes you feel better. So for the rat, it was burying the rat and giving it a sort of send off for her to say goodbye. For Mars, it's a case of doing something that feels important to right the wrongs, for making sure the more people don't die, that kind of thing. And this is the thing, when they see that this asteroid's hit Earth, it's like, oh shit, that's literally a result of the thing we're trying to stop and try to investigate right now. So
it works as some motivation, I guess, for them to all right, no, we need to carry on.
Yeah, because that's what he says. We're building a coffin for the whole planet. That's the way he phrases it, and it's really interesting because everything we've known about Mars since the start of this show, where they teased it by telling us, and then we've actually learned more and met the characters in season 2 and so on, is it sort of the ideals of like dreaming of like properly terraforming and creating oceans, and the dream of the strong military of Mars, and it's all been this very idealist. Even the speech we got, last episode or two with the admiral at the college, all of that, it paints this picture of devotion, and him saying we're building a coffin for Mars, what he really means is building a coffin for the Martian dream, because all that's been thrown under the bus.
Yeah, and the reality is that dream died as soon as the rings were discovered. We spoke about this a lot.
Yeah,
I think that was last season, about how, now that there's all this out there, that Earth's not the big threat anymore. They don't have that unifying factor as a society anymore, so they're kind of crumbling a little bit.
And now there's all these planets they can just go to and colonize. They don't have to necessarily
just shit about Mars anymore.
Yeah, they don't have to turn Mars into a breathable, livable atmosphere. It doesn't matter anymore as much. And it can still be useful. It's not necessarily meaningless to still go through with it, but obviously the passion to do it's just not there anymore. So,
not on a society-wide level, anyway.
Because it would still be handy if Mars was that livable. You could still populate it with more people. It could still be a good, location for a lot of people to live and do things. But
there are definitely the diehard patriots, I'm sure, who are like, no, we're Martians. This is about Mars. But it's just that there's not enough of them anymore.
And it's funny that we're getting this divide, perhaps, in different types of Martians, and if they're going with the flow. Obviously, the corrupt people kind of fall into that category, but I wouldn't say everyone who's going with the flow does. So, in some cases, you could argue that Bobby and Alex, because they did go a different path, also are kind of going with the flow and redefining what they believe in and what they're fighting for, and so on and so on. And then you have the diehard Martians, but even and we've had this for a while, but even the Belters, the idea that some are devoted to Dawes and Johnson, and I wonder, what is Dawes' opinion on this? What is Dawes' reaction to what Marco's done today? Is he going to ultimately side with him and say, okay, you know what, this was a bit extreme, but results are results?
Politics has been very interesting since season 1.
Oh, it has been, yeah.
So I'm sure we'll get something.
I do hope they get him back before the end of the show, because we know season 6 is the last one. I do hope they get what's his face back. I forget his name. Oh,
Completely blanking on his name.
oh my God, he's in everything.
That's annoying. He is, isn't he? And he bloody mastered that accent.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he probably is the one who. He's probably the one who got in to come in and like sort of like, okay, this is what it is. Everyone else has to copy him now because he's the thespian who can do it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. He can workshop the accent.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So, I'm looking up his name, but while you say something,
because yes, it's very annoying. But I think since the start of the show, the Belters were the most divided with all the different internal factions, as opposed to Earth and Mars, which were pretty unified outwardly at the very least, and maybe a couple of internal factions, whereas the Belters were all over the place. And I do wonder will this bring them together at all, or will it at least bring them into like one or two big factions in a bit more of an open way?
Yeah, you have to imagine there's going to be a portion who see this as just, no, you just murdered millions of people. This is barbaric. This is terrorism. You just committed genocide. We can't align with that no matter what. Yeah.
And then you got some who will be for the belt.
Yeah. Even if they don't necessarily like how Extremia went, ultimately, I'm standing by the belt now because this is now we have some power, we have some intimidation. We're going to do this. Jared Harris is the name of the actor, by the way.
Yes.
I can't believe I forgot his name. But so yeah, that stuff was well done. The coup itself, I thought was really exciting. You thought Monica was in trouble, and I was wondering if they were going to get away with her, and they actually don't, because Holden shows up and she's able to sort of help fight back. And I think it's interesting that the traitor, once the robot leaves, because Holden is trying desperately, because he sees it with the proto-molecule, and he's trying to put a metal bar in its leg to stop it from functioning. Because obviously, the guards who were there the first place tried to shoot it, and obviously it was pointless. The thing was just like bullets.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's a big giant mech.
I'm a mech. What are they going to do to me? And it doesn't. It ultimately gets away, and she just starts laughing and says, "It's too late now. It's too late for you." And she comes off as a zealot, as someone who is who's been lying in wait and waiting for a moment to serve her purpose for Marco. I thought it was very convincing. And
yeah, absolutely. I think as well, you're just having her around for the previous few episodes, just enough that we we know who she is. She's been there. She's in the inner circle enough, right?
Hell, she might have even been around last season.
She might have been.
You could have told me she was. Yeah, it's been a while.
But the important thing is they did it this season, just enough to if we had forgotten her, which we clearly did if she was around, or if not, just reinforce that. No, she's here. She's important. She's always in these big meetings, so that when it does happen, it's a real surprise as to just how deep Marco's influence and reach is.
Yeah, and it makes him even just that bit more intimidating. It's not just him and a band of pirates who are pulling off some nasty shit. He's got people infiltrated throughout, at least in the belt
proper
places.
Organization.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal. And Naomi is thrown a cell at the end of the episode. She's pleading with Philip. Pleading with I mean, no, she doesn't plead with Marco. She's dead set on hating Marco. She's that doesn't waver for a second. But he throws it in her face. He talks about how his motivations, like he's become even more impassioned because raising a child does that to you. So all of a sudden your ambition rises up, and all of it's just thrown it in her face that she left, that she hasn't got that experience. She never raised a child. So you can see the gears turning in his head with everything he says and the double meaning for her. He's very good at speaking. He's a very malicious speaker, and that he knows what he's doing when he's saying things, when he has both the surface level and also what he's saying beneath it.
Yes, the most dangerous kind of leaders, really, the good orators.
Oh yeah. It feels like a lazy thing to just compare it to Hitler, but the truth be told, Hitler had that. So
yeah, I mean, it's an undeniable important quality in how they get people to follow them. It's how they achieve most of their goals.
And I think I do love that this key threat for this season is kind of away from the alien stuff, and I'm sure we'll come back to it because we've been teasing this war between the proto-molecule makers and the gate makers, and we'll get into that. But I kind of love that this season it's all about the OPA, the belt, and that politics, which have been simmering since episode 1 of this show. They've been simmering there, and it feels very well earned, and everything feels very compounded upon compounded to get to this point. To go back to Vasarala, her and Delgado kind of admits he calls himself a coward because he backed down. He didn't want to pursue things, and now obviously everything was proven right. And still, no one will take a Vasarala's call. She ends up, because obviously she was the Secretary General, she has like contact details for like the cooks and all that, and she ends up calling the chef on like, it's not, they don't call it Air Force One, but whatever it's called.
It is something one though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's like UN one or something like that.
Yeah, same difference. And basically when he puts down the Secretary General's like dinner, the tablet sitting there with a Vasarala on Skype, just be like, now listen to me, you stupid bitch. Listen to me. We have
to her credit, she listens.
She does. She immediately listens, and she's like, this is why you're not not spotting the asteroids. They got stealth tech. Point our our anti-stealth
satellites.
Yeah, the satellites, whatever, the watchtower stuff. And the order goes through, and we actually don't know the fate of the president or the Secretary General, because as they're just towards the end of this conversation, there's a blinding light and there's an impact, seemingly a few miles from the plane.
And we see the wide shot with the shockwave throwing the planes all over.
Yeah. And I feel like she might turn up alive. I feel like this is left open enough. I think that people on that plane could be alive. It's not.
They could have got out. Yeah, it's definitely possible.
And no one can contact them because they're just stranded somewhere in the middle of chaos and.
And communications are knocked down all over. I mean, they mentioned after the second one that they can't contact New York, for example.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In fact, there's a bit in the news later which I think implied that that's because of one of the tidal waves. Because it mentioned New York's like water blockade or whatever was overcome with a tidal wave, I think. Which actually, given that in the last decade or so, there has been a couple of instances of like some serious flooding because of the, just how high the sea levels become around parts of that part of the world. It feels like a genius little like sort of based in reality kind of thing. Okay, so the idea is that this keeps going, so New York builds like a dam essentially around some of the island. Yeah, that makes sense. It all sort of tracks.
It does. Yeah.
Those little details are nice in this show, where it feels like it's building upon reasonable estimates of where things could go, even if it may not come true, but they feel very plausible right now.
Right, and that's the important thing. It's realistic enough, believable. And when it comes to Vasarala, obviously they mentioned that no one really knows what the chain of command is right now. No one really knows who's supposed to take charge. I can foresee Vasarala stepping up until. Like I say, I think the new one on the plane is still alive, and she'll come back, and Vasarala will give up the position for it again.
Yeah, I think I can see her sort of like acting up, and she basically almost gets control because no one else is willing to take it, and because she's such an active, when crisis is happening, Vasarala does try and like step in for better or worse, and tries to keep things on track.
I think she's got as well like experience in the role, so that'll probably help people go along with it. It'll be like, no, we know we can trust. Politics aside, shit's going down right now.
Yeah, I can almost see her getting a permanent position as like a senior crisis counselor, so that whenever something big goes down like this, like she's there to like, all right, bring her in, bring her Vasarala, and she knows what she's doing in these times.
Isn't that what the Secretary of Defense is supposed to do?
Well, yeah, supposedly, but he's not listening to Vasarala, so he's clearly shit at his job.
That is true, yeah.
So, yeah, no, everything in this episode felt big. This is the genius of having something that's so serialized, where everything feels earned and built to. Is every time it cut to like a new set of characters we hadn't got to yet, I was excited about them finding out, and then you throw in the coup as well, which just ramped things up in a different way. Yeah,
and this is, like I say, it's exactly the sort of stuff that... This is the level of storytelling that only works on TV, as opposed to film. Like, you can't do this in film. I mean, you can tell this story, sure, but you'll never have that weight or impact.
Yeah, no, this felt special going through this episode, because everything just... There's a weight to just the accumulation of spending time with characters and plot, where things actually do progress and grow, and there's arcs, and it does feel like there is there's masterminds behind this who have a plan and where this is going, and obviously that comes more from the books, but same difference. The idea that there is ultimately an end game, and everything is building towards it, and it feels like it because it is focuses so many different elements of this world, which is the politics, the alien stuff, all the space stuff, all these different, and then the characters' personal lives. All of it is blended so well, and every so often there's an episode where it's a little imbalanced or you feel it's a little bit slower, but even those ones contribute to the overall feeling by the time we hit something like this, where this all just feels real, and these catastrophes on Earth in this episode, these asteroids, because after the third one, it's meant, they do retask the satellites, they're able to shoot the next one down, and seemingly, so the threat is now over, right? Or at least the imminent danger is now over. The threat's not over, but the imminent danger is over.
Yeah.
So we have reached this point. So seeing the reactions next episode to Marco's speech, is there people in support? Is there not? What is Holden's reaction? Especially now that his, hunt for who's hunting the proto-molecule is now tied into the overall plot. And it was always probably going to, but there was an element of it could be something else for a little bit.
Yeah, there was always the element of some of this could be setting up for next season, because this show does play the long game. So
I'm fascinated to see next episode where they take some of this stuff. And I think I'm excited for Calissa to sort of be more in the mix. I think it's interesting that we have Bobby and Alex together. We have Holden with this new character, relative new character of Bull, and then we also have now Amos has got someone. He's got a partner. Like everyone kind of seems to be in pairs, or at least with someone they can bounce off of. Avasarala has Delgado. Like no one's just completely on their own.
Right, and Naomi has obviously Philip and Marco.
Yeah, I mean, arguably she's the most on her own because they're not allies. She's the only one who's kind of probably feels the most isolated because of that.
Oh, absolutely. But in terms of just giving her something to play off of, for us as an audience, there's going to be content there.
But I feel like her experience this season is going to be the most miserable because she's in that situation. And it's not even just that they're not allies. They're people who remind her of every bad choice she made when she was young. Her son and abandoning him is this big regret. Like everything is all about. Whereas Amos is almost trying to do this noble new thing that is like a really good betterment for his character. It's this noble path that he's on to try and help someone like him. It's
really interesting seeing Amos kind of trying mentoring someone to be a better Amos.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of funny. But then you have Bobby and Alex who are trying to find what it is now to be a good Martian, now that the old idea of a good Martian is kind of dead, and that's kind of got a noble idea to it. Holden's always trying to save the world, so he's a superhero.
Yep, classic Holden.
So I think Naomi's the one that's going to feel the pain. She's going to be the one that hurts, I think, throughout the season, and we're going to be hoping and praying for something, like some positive outcome, whether she can convince Philip a little bit, because if there's going to be a hint of him maybe kind of breaking down a little bit, it is the idea that he did choose to bring her when he didn't have to, and maybe that is the first sign that he does want a relationship with her, even if he's trying to be tough and he's been adamant and so and so. Yeah. So this was wonderful. This was a wonderful 45 minutes of payoff.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, I really don't have anything to complain about, which is why I did the stupid nitpick earlier. It
was exhilarating. This was just 45 minutes of exhilaration, and that is something that I don't think, not in the same way. A movie can give you exhilaration, but not in the same way where it is just all this payoff to build and build.
I think a movie can give you a 45-minute section of exhilaration, but it can't be all exhilaration from when you sit down to watch it to when you finish, which is what this episode was.
Yeah. So I can't wait to watch episode 5 tomorrow. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
I'm going to see the pain when we catch up and we have to wait a week.
Yeah, that's going to be rough.
I will say this though definitively. I think the choice to go weekly was the right choice, even though we're not experiencing like over half the season like that. In this episode, I am convinced would have been such a satisfying chapter after a week's wait. One
of the only things I'd seen before we started, just on Twitter, not even any spoilers or anything, just people going, God damn that episode of Expanse, or just God damn cliffhangers, or something to that effect every week. And I'm like,
good.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, that is the feeling that they should be doing.
Yes. I love the Amazon with this and The Boys season 2, both good shows have embraced. Give us a bit of a dump at the start, but have embraced the weekly, because I think it might even help the writing a little bit, especially if they knew, if they were planning. Because I know The Boys season 2, they wanted to do it weekly, so
right.
And I think
between
it helps.
this, Amazon's shifting in this direction. Disney Plus obviously is already kind of there from the start.
Because there's a few Netflix shows I love, but I think by and large, it's taught me that writing suffers when they know it's going out as one chunk. And
yeah, because they feel like they can cover up little. Yeah, it doesn't matter. People will just go on to the next one.
I think, obviously there's some I love. I love Stranger Things, and I really like Mindhunter. I love the OA, but by and large, their shows have an overall kind of blandness to them, and I think it wouldn't all be fixed by going weekly and forcing the writing to kind of like work to that format. But I do think it would help out some of them.
I mean, even some of those shows that we love, I think Stranger Things definitely has instances in that where I'm like, this is only here because they didn't feel a need to change it because of the form.
I think season 2 had a couple episodes like that. I think 3 kind of tightened up to its credit.
No, that's fair, yeah.
But hey, there you go. That's Expanse episode 4. So we're about to 5 as soon as we can, because I want to watch more of it anyway. So thank you very much. You can get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates if you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here. You can go to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can support us for as little as $1 per month over there and get some bonuses for your trouble, but mostly just help keep the content coming. You can also support us for completely free by just hitting the like button and subscribing and commenting. All those things do help YouTube. We're at the mercy of their algorithm, and that's the things that it kind of appreciates. So feed the YouTube machine with those clicks. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?